today's lesson on life is chronological readiness, planning for your future as an aging adult. This month, we are featuring The Crossings at Harborview, a full-service continuum care retirement community owned and operated by Harmony Senior Services in Roanoke, Virginia. The facilities are open to those 62 and older with rental apartments, services for independent living, assisted living, memory care, transportation, meals, activities, housekeeping, and physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Wow! Aren't those some great services? Yes, and what an exciting community that we're going to be featuring on the show all month long. I want to talk to you about planning. I want to know, are you being active in planning for your future? Or do you feel like you're too young to be an aging adult? Well, the truth of the matter is we're all aging adults. Here today to talk to me or talk with me about chronological readiness and planning for your future as an aging adult is Miss Peggy Eberly, the Executive Director at The Crossings in Harborview, which is located in Suffolk, Virginia. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's always great to see you. Now, Peggy, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have a long history in this business and working with people and helping people, and also the company. Tell us a little bit about the history of your company.
Okay. Well, my journey began in the Midwest in Illinois, and from there after college, I ventured out to California.
Okay.
It's the late 70s, which was a fun time to be in San Francisco.
I bet.
And from there, I moved to the coast of Maine.
Nice.
Finished up a graduate degree from Lesley University in Cambridge, Mass. Owned a couple of my own businesses.
Awesome.
But through that, I ventured off into real estate development and the property management end of it. And I started to work for a nonprofit that was a development and management company. From there, I went with a sole proprietor entrepreneur. I built a huge continuum care retirement community for 12 years.
Nice.
Have worked for publicly traded companies, privately owned, and then moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, opened a couple of buildings there for a company, and moved to the Suffolk area in January to work with Harmony Senior Services.
Beautiful.
And very excited to be here and to be working with this privately owned company. Jim Smith is the owner of Smith Packet, and about 7 years ago he decided to manage his own buildings. Before, he was really just a developer and leased them out. And so our community will be the 9th community in their portfolio in Virginia. We're also growing into North Carolina, South Carolina, and maybe Kentucky. But we are a full continuum retirement community where some of his retirement communities are really just assisted living and memory care.
Okay, awesome. Now tell me a little bit about the values. I know there's some strong values that are behind Harmony Senior Services. So tell us a little bit about the values and what everyone brings, because I can see it in your staff. What is it that Harmony tries to bring to their company?
Well, I think that because it is family owned and Mr. Smith had his own personal experience, you know, he built buildings for years, nursing homes, but when he was dealing with his own aging parents, his wife's parents, his parents, they realized that there were human beings living in this building and it wasn't just bricks and mortar. And his mother and his father-in-law still live in one of our communities in Roanoke. So I think it's got that human touch to it. It's really about supporting seniors, and you come here to live. And what we find is so many people are living in their own homes and they're really depressed. They don't have that socialization. So we are a social model, not a medical model. So while we provide all the amenities, it's really about being with your own peers, the team members loving you to death, and being part of a family. They're our family and we're their family as well.
And that's definitely one of the key things that we're going to be talking about. That's going to be a theme throughout these episodes is we want you to focus on living. We want you to enjoy life, and you're going to keep hearing that from me. Next, I want to talk about our topic today, which is chronological readiness, planning for your future as an aging adult. The chronological age aspect. Is there a stigma that I don't need to plan until I feel old? And I'm not old, so therefore I'm not ready.
I think everybody has a perception that we feel like we're 15 or 20 years younger. There are a couple of, having done this for 30 years, what I find is that there are those people who have been planners all their lives. So whether they've lost a spouse, they're widow or widower, or they're still a couple, throughout their life they've looked at the next stage, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. And so many have thought, well, maybe we'll move into a community, or their friends have done that, and they're happy and they don't want home ownership anymore. Some people have their long-term care insurance purchased. You have the other half that are, whether it's denial or fear. You ask them at 90, well, what did you think you were going to do? And they said, I didn't think I was going to get this old. So I think that also for the adult children, the boomers, they haven't really dealt with their aging process until now they're helping their aging parents. And then it's making them start think about, well, how am I going to afford this? Maybe I need to clean out my house and my children don't have to do this for me. So we're really seeing 3 generations being affected by all of these changes because people are living longer. You know, the average person used to move into a retirement community. They were in their early 70s. They're in their mid 80s now because they've stayed home and they're healthier. So.
And I think this is the time, you know, it's important to talk about these things, but I think that people feel like there is a right age. Is there a chronological age? Is there a right time to start planning?
Well, I think that, you know, age is an attitude, and people's life changes vary with health issues. So you can have a very young, active 92-year-old, and you can have a very old, depressed, not healthy 60-year-old. So, or 25-year-old. So I think that it's really up to the individual to feel like, is this the right time? People make this choice because they don't want to be a burden to their children. We assumed everybody had children. There are a lot of single people, a lot of single men and women that never were married or had children. And so I find that they are a little more proactive because they've planned and they can make a decision by themselves. It's not unusual for a couple that the wife might be ready to make a change and the husband, I'm not leaving this house. There's somebody digging in their heels. So in some ways the decision's easier when you're not negotiating with somebody else. Sometimes it's the children who are the obstacle because the fear of mom's actually going to move out of this house where we've had 35 Thanksgivings. It's their own issues that they bring to the table, and so they're transferring their own emotionals onto their parents and not helping them with that process.
And it's interesting because when people hold on to these things, when was the last time you used that, you know, lawnmower that's in the shed? When was the last time you actually visited your parents, like more than once, not just the holidays, you know, and they're holding on to these material things. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. Interesting, we're talking about this planning process. You know, recently I attended a memorial service, and it was very interesting seeing a lot of the young people start talking about, am I a donor? Like, what does my driver's license say? And we need to get insurance. And, you know, these younger people. And so, of course, all the time, the aging adults, and I'll say those who are getting older and understand that, they know. And so funerals are a way sometimes to push people to say, you know, I really need to think about this. But we had a lot of our young people saying, I need to get insurance. And it's true. It's very true. And so I don't think that there is a right age. I think you should, as soon as, especially if you have children though, but you should go ahead and get insurance. And I think that's something that our elders always taught us, because they always had insurance on all of their kids and their grandkids. So many aging adults are really uncertain about their future. Who will take care of me? Where will I end up? And so on. So on another conversation, you said to me, and I love this, aging adults, you want them to feel in control of their future, to be empowered to do something now. Why are you so passionate about planning for the future? What does that mean when people have that?
Well, I think that you only have to look at obituaries now, and people are passing at a younger age. And it's really important for people to have their power of attorney forms done, their durable power of attorney, their estate updated. I recently moved to Virginia and had to make those changes from another state, so it was appropriate here. Some people are still purchasing long-term care insurance. You need to do it in your early 50s. Otherwise, you may not meet the medical requirements for past history. It may be too expensive. So, and that's really a way to preserve your assets. For other people, they have enough assets that they don't need the long-term care insurance. But really working with a good local attorney who specializes in elder law, you've got great resources here in this area that we've met with to really help people walk through all those steps and look at it non-emotional, because that's their business. And, but to make those decisions right down to the details, because there are such family dynamics. You're doing a disjustice to your children and your family to leave them with a mess. I think we're all responsible for taking care of that work, our own. And who knows, there's horrible accidents that happen all the time. And if you don't have that paperwork done and things are ready and you've worked with somebody, you become a ward of the state. And it's very costly and nobody wins at that point.
And I'm not going to get into, she's getting into a little bit of my speaking to your life, so preach, Peggy. And so I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a second. But one of the things also that you touched on already a little bit was, what can these adult children do to help their aging parents? And one of the things that I wanted us to talk about was to point out those wills and power of attorneys and those type of things. So I think that's awesome that we're pointing people in the direction of talking to an attorney, getting the information, just getting the facts, even if you don't have it. But actually, it doesn't cost that much to get a power of attorney, to get a will done, but it means so much in the end process. How can you on the Crossings help aging adults and their adult children who are ready to plan, sort of that sit-down process? What are some of the things that you do at the Crossings that can help them they come to you, I'm ready to plan?
Well, what's wonderful about the team that I'm working with is they're all very seasoned. I mean, between us, we may have 80 years of experience in this field. So we've seen the market changes as well. The customer today is different from the customer 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But we want to be a resource for them. So whether they ever move to one of our communities, sometimes they come to us and they don't know where to begin. This is a language we speak all day long. But for them, it's, they say, my mom needs assisted living. Well, really, she doesn't, but that's kind of a household word now. So we can gear them and give them the direction and the resources, because there are many people in this area that can help them, whether it's Department of Human Services or Social Services or elder law attorneys or certain physicians. Some people need a geriatrician for an assessment. So that's really our goal, is if in the end we can help them move into our community, that's wonderful. We invite them and would welcome them. But if not, we want to be able to gear them. Some people will come to us and say, I don't need all those services. I'm really just looking for an apartment for somebody 55 and older. And so we know where to send them for that as well.
But we're going to talk about some of those awesome things that they're offering at the Crossings in each episode, so I want you to stay tuned. But also, there are things that you mentioned to me that I just want to point out real quick, and we're going to talk a lot about a lot of things that you have going on at the Crossings. But I want to invite people in to talk to your staff. I want to invite people to do possibly just to come over and ask questions, to call in and ask questions, to maybe do a tour, those type of things. It's really important that you do that so you get a feel for what's going on and what's available, and know that the Crossings is a resource. Is there anything else, Peggy, that you'd like to share before we go to our break?
We have a wonderful website. It's www.thecrossings@Harborview. It talks about the history of our company. It'll show a virtual tour of our community. For people, they can even plan their own apartment. They can measure their couch and say, it's going to fit in this particular room. But that's a good place to begin. I encourage people that when they're doing their research to ask the right questions. There's lots of options around here, lots of financial differences in communities. So, look around and really do your research that way.
Nice.
But we're there 7 days a week.
Okay.
We're at 5271 Harborview Boulevard. Somebody's always there on the other end of the phone or to greet someone, and we love to see people come in and talk with us.
Well, don't go away. Ms. Peggy Eberly is going to come back to our community resources and share some financial information as well. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching. It's life-changing. Let's give Ms. Peggy Eberly a hand again.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be right back. It's now time for me to speak into your life. Today, I want to focus on two things. Don't be selfish and plan ahead. There are a couple of things I want to say about that, so let me explain myself. Don't be selfish. I know that some people have not purchased life insurance, whole or term life, and some of you are not saving money the way that you should because you're thinking, as me and Peggy were talking about earlier, that I'm not old, I'm not there yet as far as planning is concerned. But I want to talk to those of you who have not planned anything because you're thinking, I'm going to leave this world and maybe I won't know anything about what happens, but that's selfish. And I don't want us to be selfish when we're thinking about this process, because I know from personal experience, having planned a number of funerals, that it is a process to deal with, and leaving your loved ones behind to deal with those processes alone, that's not something that we want to do without some planning. Someone has to take care of those arrangements. Someone has to call the utility company, Dominion Power, or the water company. Someone has to cut off the cable. Someone has to deal with the debt. Someone has to deal with your life insurance, if there is any. Someone has to do that. And so we want to make sure that we set people up to have the information that they need. I don't want people to feel sad and angry. Let me explain myself. When you lose someone, you feel really sad. But also, people sometimes like to suppress that feeling of anger. But you can feel sad and angry at the same time. Sad because you've lost your loved one, but angry because they didn't plan. And so it's really important that we don't carry those feelings into trying to plan a funeral or memorial service. It's really hard to be grieving and to be angry at the same time. But that's really a normal feeling. So if there's someone out there who's feeling that, it is a normal feeling because you have all these things to deal with and the person did not plan accordingly. I want us to make sure that we have the tools that we need in order for us to move forward. There's going to be a lot of things that need to be done when your loved one leaves this world. Please take the advice and the information that we're sharing with you in these episodes and make sure that you utilize them, because if you really love your loved ones, and I always say, if you really love me, don't leave me stressed out. Amen? Yes. Okay? Don't be selfish. Plan ahead. Get life insurance, $5,000, $10,000 at the least, just to sort of help with some burial things. There's whole life, there's term life, you need to renew it. Just a couple of tips. Whole life, make sure that if you borrow from it, pay it back, okay, or else it's deducted. But make sure you have some type of insurance, something that can help your loved ones when you're not here. Also think about getting a power of attorney. I know I talked to a number of people before I studied psychology, I studied law, and a number of people didn't want their loved ones, for whatever reason, to have a full power of attorney. Well, you can get a limited power of attorney. You can also get a living will. If something happens to you while you're still living in this world and you can't make decisions for yourself, you can utilize those documents. Meaning the hospitals will tell you to get a living will, to have a power of attorney if you know you're dealing with some type of illness. I want to make sure that you are prepared. Also think about getting sort of your assets sort of set aside and things sort of divided where you want them to be. And even if you don't have a whole lot, a will still is really good because you can sort of tell your family members what you want to do with the little bit of property that you have. And it leaves people sort of understanding what your wishes are. And people most likely will respect your wishes, but it lets your children know these are the things I want done, these are the things I want handled, and who I want to handle those things, so there's less confusion, less anger, less bitterness, and more joy, more celebration of your life. That should really be the focus. So don't be selfish, plan ahead, and thank you so much for watching. It's life changing. Right back. It's now time for our community resources. And joining us again is Ms. Peggy Eberly from the Crossings at Harborview. Peggy, I want to start with you first of all, and then I'm going to move over to my second guest, and I'll introduce her in a second. But when you're moving into a senior community, it can raise some concerns, the main one being financial. Talk to us about the financial aspect of transitioning to a senior community.
Okay. Many people are selling their home and using the assets from their home. They're investing those assets so that they have additional income because their home has really been their best investment throughout their lifetime. And we are a rental community where some are a buy-in or a co-op. So ours is easy because you keep your assets and you just pay for the rent. We're also all-inclusive, so you've got all these amenities and utilities included. But really it's based on the size of the apartment. So sometimes people are making that decision. When people move into an assisted living or a memory care community or a skilled environment, there are other sources that are available to them that sometimes they don't know. One being the VA benefits, which Chris is going to address. But mostly people can afford it. They don't think they can, or they think I don't deserve it, it's too pretty for me, or I want to leave something for my children. So it's those hard conversations that we can have with them. We also do a cost comparison of what's it costing to stay in their own home. They're paying for maintenance, maybe yard work or utilities and property taxes. All that goes away when you come with us. So it's really helping them go through that process. And as you say, it is a process. I was thinking before, Dr. Perry, when you were speaking, I heard a quote yesterday that said, the best way to honor your deceased mother is to live a full life. And I thought, you know, that is so true. We don't get them back once they're gone. So in terms of adult, children preparing, that's sort of the reality check when you have a funeral too. So.
It is a huge reality check for a lot of people, and that's why we're having these conversations. So hopefully we're getting some great information out there. So thank you so much for sharing that information. So for the first time, welcome to the show, Ms. Christina Drumboard from Care Connect of Hampton Roads.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Care Connect is a full-service geriatric care management firm. I had worked previously in communities, memory care, assisted living, nursing home as admissions counselor for many years. And then I decided to go ahead and start Care Connect. We were finding that there were a lot of families who were starting the process, but there was a lot of areas of exposure that they had a lot of questions that needed to be answered. And it was very fragmented as to where to go to get the information.
It is.
Things have evolved, but what we really want to do is to pinpoint specifically what levels of care are most appropriate for them when they come in. 90% of our cases right now are still crisis intervention. And so having these conversations like you're having right now and with the communities are so important.
They are.
Because with the appropriate planning, we can avoid that. We are looking at, if we're planning on assisted living, the funding resources are really a huge part of the biggest concern oftentimes that they have. I am an accredited agent with the U.S. Veterans Administration.
Beautiful.
The aid and attendance pension that Peggy was talking about, very little is still known about it. The benefit can help to supplement a significant amount of money to supplement the cost of care. For aid and attendance, if we have a veteran who has a living dependent spouse, the benefit can pay a little over $2,000 per month in tax-free additional funding. What a lot of people don't know is if they're looking at transitioning into an assisted living environment, 100% of what they're paying for their monthly rental is actually a deductible medical expense as far as the Veterans Administration is concerned. If you have a single veteran who's looking at transitioning, the benefit is just over $1,700 per month. A widowed spouse can actually qualify. This money can mean the difference between them being able to afford moving into the property or having to stay at home and take the risk sometimes of not having really the level of care that they need.
Utilizing their own funds.
We identify identify other areas of exposure with regards to legal documents. That's one of the first questions that we ask our clients when they come into the office. Do they have powers of attorney? Do they have an advanced medical directive and a will?
Exactly.
Because those documents, as you stated, are a lot less expensive than having to seek a guardian conservatorship.
Exactly.
I'm also a life, health, and annuities agent licensed for the state of Virginia, because that's another area that we want to make sure is taken care of, not just for the elderly loved one, but for the adult children who are the ones that are contacting us about our services.
Exactly.
The planning part for multi-generational, it's very, very important so that we're avoiding this issue and repetitive crisis management for the adult child.
This is great information, because I know that this is one of the main aspects that people always ask. After they hear all the great information, they say, well, can I afford it? It sounds nice, but can I afford it? And after we get past getting them to move out of their home, this is the next big thing. So you all provided some really great information. And so I want people to be able to get in touch with you. Let's start with you. If you can give your contact information, how people can get more information or contact you to ask more questions.
Through our website, it's careconnecthr.com. You can also phone us directly, 757-271-4270.
Very good. Ms. Peggy?
And we are at the Crossings at Harborview. Again, we're at 5871 Harborview Boulevard in Suffolk. We're in the Harborview area. We are behind Starbucks, so that seems to be our direction for everybody, because people know where that is. And my direct line is 207-604-4769.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Peggy Eberly from the Crossings at Harborview, and Ms. Christina Drum Boyd, right? From I want to make sure I get your company's name right? Care Connect of Hampton Roads. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching the show. God bless you. We'll be praying for each and every one of you. We'll see you next time. It's Life Changing.